The chamber is silent, yet alive with shadows. A single candle sputters on a wooden table, its flame bowing with each whisper of draft that seeps through the cracks in the shutters. Smoke curls upward in a thin thread, staining the ceiling in dark spirals that seem to writhe like restless spirits. The smell of tallow and wax clings to the stone, mingled with the damp musk of centuries that no fire can ever purge. A knight sits alone, hunched forward, his broad frame bent beneath the weight of a mission he cannot name aloud. His armor lies discarded in the corner, breastplate dulled with scratches, the gauntlets still smeared with grime from the road. He wears only his tunic now, rough wool stretched across shoulders scarred by years of war. His hand trembles slightly as he moves a quill across parchment, each stroke halting, uncertain. Latin words form unevenly, blotched and smudged where the quill falters. He pauses often, lifting his head toward the candle as though hoping it might grant him clarity. On the table lies more than parchment. A rusted iron key rests near the inkpot, its teeth jagged and blackened by time. Beside it, a broken wax seal, once stamped with the crest of his lord, lies in two pieces, its edges sharp like shards of bone. These objects are not simple tools, they are symbols, binding him to secrets darker than any battlefield wound. He runs his fingers across the key, feeling its chill bite his skin, and wonders if this is what loyalty tastes like: rust, iron, and silence. Outside, a bell tolls from the chapel tower. Its heavy voice drifts through the window, rolling into the chamber like distant thunder. The knight bows his head, lips moving silently in prayer, though no words escape his throat. He remembers his oath, sworn long ago beneath banners snapping in the wind, his hands pressed to a relic, his mouth dry as he pledged life and soul to Lord and cross alike. That vow was supposed to be eternal, unbreakable, yet here, in the midnight hour, it feels fragile, thin as parchment. His mind drifts to the battlefield, to memories that cling like stains. He sees once more the faces of men who rode at his side, their shouts rising over the clash of steel, their eyes wild with the hunger to live another moment. He recalls their deaths, swords breaking, bodies collapsing into mud, prayers silenced by blood. Those memories are wounds that no priest's blessing could absolve. Now, this mission before him feels heavier still, not fought with blade and shield, but with betrayal and secrecy. The candle guttering before him seems to mock his hesitation. Shadows stretch across the chamber walls, twisting his form into monstrous shapes. He lifts the quill again, scrawling the final lines of the message he must carry. His hand shakes so violently that the ink spills, blotting the parchment in a black wound that spreads across the words. He curses under his breath, the sound low, guttural, swallowed quickly by the silence. The mission cannot wait for perfection. Truth and lies alike are carried on fragile lines, and once sealed, they can no longer be undone. With deliberate slowness, he drips wax onto the parchment's fold, the molten red pools like blood seeping into the fibers. He presses a signet into it, not his own, but one given to him in secrecy, its crest unrecognized by his lord or his brothers. When the wax hardens, the message becomes a weapon sharper than any sword, though silent, invisible, and more damning. The knight sits back, the chair groaning beneath him. His breath is shallow, chest rising and falling as though each inhalation were a burden. The chamber seems smaller now, the walls pressing inward, the air heavy with the weight of invisible eyes. He imagines saints on the frescoed walls of the chapel nearby watching him, their painted gazes filled with judgment. He imagines the whispers of monks rising in chant, their prayers piercing the night, while he, sworn knight, descends into treachery. He stands, the scrape of his chair against stone loud as a scream in the hush. He reaches for his sword, the leather-wrapped hilt worn smooth by years of bloodied hands. He does not grasp it with pride or purpose, but with resignation. The sword is not his weapon tonight. It is his mask, the proof that he is still a knight when within he has already crossed into exile. For a moment, he lingers by the table. His eyes settle on the candle, its flame straining against its wick. He wonders if the flame is loyal, or if it too longs to flee the confines of wax. He leans close, his breath disturbing its glow. The flame wavers violently, shrinking, stretching, then steadies. He sees in it his own heart, fragile, trembling, yet burning because it must. At last, he takes the parchment, tucks it into the pouch at his side, and lifts the rusted key. Its weight is small, yet it drags his arm down as though forged of stone. He straps his sword to his hip, pulls his cloak tight across his chest, and opens the chamber door. The hinges groan, a sound of protest, like the moan of some ancient ghost. The candle flickers once more as the draft rushes in. He pauses at the threshold, casting one final look back into the chamber. For a heartbeat, he wonders if he should stay, if he should let the candle burn to nothing, if he should tear the parchment into shreds and scatter them into smoke. But the thought passes. Duty, or perhaps damnation, propels him forward. He steps into the corridor. The stone is colder here, the silence heavier, pressing against his chest like a mailed fist. Behind him, the candle gutters, flame bowing low, trembling as if reluctant to let him go. Then it dies with a soft hiss, leaving only smoke that curls upward, a ghost of fire vanishing into darkness. And with that extinguished light, he moves deeper into the castle, carrying not only a secret, but the weight of a night that will never end. The mission has begun. The corridor breathes with its own silence. A silence not empty, but layered with centuries of whispered prayers, betrayals, and confessions swallowed by stone. The knight steps into it, closing the chamber door behind him, the echo of its groan dissolving into the long hall. The air is colder here, damp and metallic, carrying the scent of iron hinges and old soot clinging to walls blackened by torch smoke. Torches sputter in their sconces, flames coughing sparks into the air like weary lungs. Their light does not banish the dark, but toys with it, pushing it back, then letting it surge again until the knight's shadow stretches and contracts, twisted and grotesque across the uneven stone. Each flame makes him appear larger than life, and yet smaller, distorted into something neither man nor knight, but specter. The banners that hang above are sagging, colors long faded into dull fabric that resembles skin stretched too thin. Crests that once roused armies now hang lifeless, their edges frayed, moth-eaten, brittle as parchment. He glances at them as he passes, each one a reminder of loyalty sworn, each one now a weight upon his back. He remembers the oaths uttered in vaulted halls, the feasts where laughter masked hunger for power, the sermons that thundered of faith and loyalty. But here in this corridor of shadows, those words ring hollow. His boots strike against stone in slow rhythm, a soldier's march turned penance. The sound echoes off the vaulted ceiling, loud at first, then swallowed by silence. He tries to steady his breath, but each inhalation feels too sharp, each exhalation too loud, as though the walls themselves lean in to listen. At intervals, he halts, head tilted, ears straining for sound beyond his own. Somewhere distant, a rat scurries through the walls, claws scratching faintly. Somewhere farther still, a guard coughs, the sound muffled, weary, unsuspecting. His hand drifts to the pouch at his belt. The parchment inside feels heavier than iron. He adjusts it nervously, the leather strap creaking as though even it resists its burden. It is only words, ink on a page, wax upon a fold, but those words can unmake bonds, fracture oaths, destroy kings. He has carried swords into battle, lifted shields against arrows, ridden through fire and famine, but never has he felt such crushing weight as this. He lowers his head, pulling his cloak tighter across his shoulders. The wool scratches his neck, the hood casting his face into deeper shadow. He wants to vanish, to pass unseen like smoke. But each torch betrays him, throwing his outline forward and backward, announcing his presence to the void. He imagines unseen eyes watching from alcoves, from arrow slits, from cracks in the stone. He imagines their whispers, traitor, betrayer, exile. As he moves deeper, he notices the doorways set into the walls, each one closed, each one bound in iron hinges that gleam faintly in the light. Behind them lie chambers filled with relics, secrets, perhaps sleeping men. He dares not linger. His pace is steady, his boots tracing the same worn grooves where centuries of men before him walked. Kings, guards, servants, spies. He is only another figure in an endless procession, and yet tonight, his steps feel unlike theirs. Tonight, he is not merely a knight, but a man unraveling. The corridor bends, narrowing into a throat of stone. He pauses at the curve, pressing his hand against the wall, its surface slick with damp cold enough to sting his palm. He tilts his head, listening. Silence, save for the hiss of torches straining against drafts that sneak through cracks unseen. Still, he waits, heart pounding, as though the air itself might betray him. He moves again, this time slower, his stride measured, deliberate. The torchlight shifts, the shadows sway, and suddenly the hall feels alive, a living thing that watches and remembers. The banners above stir faintly in the draft, as if nodding in silent judgment. He passes beneath them like a condemned man beneath gallows beams. At last he sees it, the door at the far end, heavy, wooden, bound in iron. Its frame darkened by centuries of smoke, its hinges scarred from countless openings and closings. It stands not as an entrance, but as a threshold. Beyond it lies the night, the village, the road, the mission. Behind it lies duty, faith, and the last threads of innocence. He stops before it, staring at the wood as though it were alive. His hand hovers above the iron ring, fingers trembling. The torch beside the door crackles, spitting sparks onto the floor. Its flame bends low, then surges high, casting his face into stark relief. His eyes are hollow, shadowed, his jaw tight as if carved from stone. For a moment, he hesitates. His heart beats like a drum against his ribs, and he thinks of the chamber behind him, of the candle now extinguished, of the parchment sealed in his pouch. He thinks of the chapel where saints remain painted in silent judgment, of the stable where horses breathe restlessly, waiting. He wonders if he can still turn back, if he can still remain the man he once swore to be. But the door waits. He grasps the iron ring. The metal is icy, biting into his palm, sending a shiver up his arm. He pulls. The hinges moan like the groan of some ancient beast, echoing into the corridor. The sound is long, low, mournful. It is the sound of a secret leaving its cage. The knight steps forward. The torch behind him flares, then spits its final spark, smoke curling upward as its flame begins to falter. The hall fades into darkness behind him, swallowed by shadow. He does not look back. Ahead lies the threshold. Beyond it, the silence of the courtyard, the weight of the gate, the world outside the castle's stone ribs. The mission has drawn him into its path, and he follows, step by step, deeper into the night. The chapel waits in silence, a hollow heart within the castle's ribs. Its door creaks faintly as the knight pushes it open, the iron handle biting against his palm. The air inside is colder, heavy with the lingering scent of incense burned long ago, the sweetness gone stale, clinging to the stone like memory itself. He steps across the threshold, boots pressing into flagstones worn smooth by knees of generations who prayed here. The sound echoes, soft but sharp in the stillness, as though even the walls wish to hush him. A single candle trembles on the altar, its flame bending low beneath invisible drafts. Its light spills across the carved wood and stone, casting long shadows that stretch like black arms into the corners. The altar cloth is faded, edges frayed, the fabric stained by wax drippings hardened into scars. Above the crucifix looms, Christ's painted body chipped and peeling, his eyes blurred by centuries of smoke, his face unreadable, half compassion, half accusation. The knight lowers himself to his knees, the joints of his legs creaking beneath the weight of armor half removed. His hands rest heavily against the stone, fingers pressed so hard against the floor that grit cuts into his skin. He bows his head, not in reverence, but in exhaustion, as though the stone itself is the only thing strong enough to hold the weight pressing down on him. His breath escapes in short, ragged bursts, misting faintly in the cold. He tries to pray. Words stumble on his lips, clumsy in Latin, their rhythm broken. Pater, noster, he whispers, the syllables soft, uncertain, as though he no longer believes the sound of them can reach heaven. He remembers confessions past, when a priest's voice offered absolution, when sins were lifted with ritual ease. But no priest kneels beside him tonight. Only silence listens. Only shadows answer. His mind turns to the parchment sealed in his pouch, the wax crest pressed in secrecy, the words he himself had written by candlelight in that hidden chamber. They burn hotter than fire against his side, as though the pouch were alive. He wonders if Christ above can see through leather and wool, if divine eyes pierce straight to the ink. He raises his gaze, meeting the blurred face on the cross, and in that hollow stare he feels no mercy, only the weight of judgment. The candle flickers violently, smoke curling upward in twisting ribbons that veil his face. He lifts one hand to the altar, pressing his palm against its cold edge. The stone is damp, biting into his skin, grounding him in its chill. He imagines all the hands that have touched this very place, all the vows whispered here, faithful and unfaithful, desperate and proud, holy and hollow. His is just another hand, another vow cracked by time and fear. Outside, the wind moans faintly, pressing through arrow slits like a voice begging to be heard. He thinks of the monks in distant cloisters rising in the midnight hour for vigils, their chants rolling through stone halls like rivers of sound. He imagines their voices weaving together, strong, unbroken, rising toward heaven in unison. He envies them, men bound only to prayer, untouched by secrets and swords. He envies them, then despises them for their freedom, then envies them again. Caught between longing and bitterness, he whispers once more, his voice low, trembling. If I must sin, let it be for more than myself. The words echo faintly, swallowed almost immediately by the chapel's silence. He does not know if they are plea or defiance, perhaps both. The candle flutters again, its wax pooling down the side, spilling like blood onto the altar cloth. He stares at it, transfixed, until the image sears itself into his mind. Wax as blood, candle as life, flame as soul. And he realizes then that the flame will burn until nothing remains but ash, whether he prays or sins, whether he betrays or obeys. He rises slowly, his knees stiff, the sound of fabric and chainmail scraping against stone. He pulls his hood over his face, shadowing himself once more. The candle's glow catches briefly on his cheek, illuminating a hollow face, eyes dulled, jaw set with grim resolve. He does not leave behind a prayer, nor a vow. He leaves only silence. A silence heavier than words. As he steps back to the chapel door, the crucifix looms above, the blurred Christ watching still. He does not look back, for fear that the painted face will shift, that the blurred eyes will sharpen, that the judgment he feels will be carved into clarity. He pulls the door closed behind him, the iron hinges groaning low, mournful. The candle inside gutters low, flame bending, spilling its final drops of wax before the shadows reclaim the altar. The knight stands once more in the corridor, the pouch heavy at his side, the weight of heaven and hell pressing against his chest. Ahead lies the stable, the restless breath of horses, the cold waiting beyond the gate. Behind him lies silence and stone, a chapel that holds secrets in its ribs. He exhales slowly, the sound harsh in the corridor's stillness. His hand finds his sword hilt, gripping it not for defense, but for resolve. He moves forward, each step heavier than the last, each step carrying him deeper into a night that will not forgive him. The chapel fades behind him, its candle extinguished in memory, its silence carried like a wound. Ahead, the mission darkens, pulling him toward choices that no prayer will ever cleanse. The night exhales through the cracks of the castle, carrying with it the smell of frost and damp earth. The knight descends the worn steps toward the stables, each footfall muffled by stone rubbed smooth with centuries of passage. The air grows thicker here, pungent with the mingled scents of hay, manure, and sweat. It is not the sacred heaviness of the chapel, nor the suffocating stillness of the torchlit corridor. It is something older, more primal, the smell of survival, of life tethered uneasily to human need. The stable door groans as he pushes it open. A lantern sways from its hook just inside, its glow spilling across the rows of stalls. Dust drifts lazily in the light, 1,000 tiny motes floating in the cold air like pale ash. Horses shift restlessly, their hooves striking against wood, snorts rumbling in their throats, as though they sense the burden carried in his chest. Their eyes, wide and dark, gleam in the lantern's glow, reflecting fire that is not their own. He steps inside, the straw crunching faintly beneath his boots, damp with frost that has crept in through broken slats. He pulls his cloak tighter against his shoulders, wool rough against his skin, the weight of his sword brushing at his thigh. His breath hangs before him, white and fleeting, and he feels for a moment as though even the air resists his presence. He pauses before a bay horse, its flank shivering beneath the coarse brush of its own tail. He lays a hand gently against its muzzle. The warmth is startling, alive, grounding him in a way the chapel's cold stone could not. The horse exhales, nostrils flaring, breath mingling with his, a fleeting communion between man and beast. He whispers under his breath, not a prayer, but something closer to gratitude. The horse shifts, ears flicking back, and he feels its unease ripple through his palm. From beyond the stable walls, voices drift faintly. The muffled cadence of guards exchanging words, too distant to discern but close enough to chill him. Their laughter, their coughs, their boots scraping against cobblestones. It is the sound of the world that must not see him. Not tonight. He stiffens, his hand pressing harder into the horse's muzzle, willing it to remain still. The voices fade, swallowed again by the night, leaving only the restless shuffle of hooves. He reaches for the saddle, its leather stiff from neglect, buckles tarnished. He drapes it across the horse's back with care, each movement deliberate, the clink of iron loud in the silence. His fingers tremble slightly as he fastens the straps, fumbling once before steadying himself. The pouch at his side shifts with his motion, its weight dragging at his hip, a reminder of the parchment sealed within. The horse stamps, the sound sharp, startling him as though it were a cry of accusation. The lantern flame bends in the draft, shadows crawling up the walls. The rough timbers above creak softly, echoing the weight of his thoughts. He thinks of battlefields, of nights spent in armor beneath open skies when fear was tempered by the clarity of combat. The enemy was visible then, his face known, his blade raised. Tonight's enemy is faceless, invisible, written only in ink and sealed with wax. This, he knows, is the greater danger. He slides his hand down to the reins, gripping them tightly, the leather biting into his skin. He feels the horse's strength coiled within its frame, a living force ready to carry him beyond these walls, beyond the safety of vows spoken in daylight. He hesitates, the breath caught in his throat. The straw beneath him feels like a noose tightening, the stable door like a gate closing against his will. But hesitation is a luxury already lost. He pulls the reins taut, placing one boot in the stirrup, swinging his body into the saddle. The horse shifts beneath his weight, muscles tightening, hooves scraping the floor. The sound is loud, too loud, and for a moment he fears it will rouse the entire castle. But no footsteps come. Only silence answers, thick, suffocating, broken only by the faint creak of the saddle leather. He guides the horse toward the stable door. Its hinges groan as he pushes it wide, the night spilling in, cold, raw, biting. The smell of wet earth rushes in with the wind, sharp and bracing, carrying with it the sound of dogs barking faintly in the distant village below. The horse snorts, ears pricked forward, as though tasting freedom on the air. The knight turns once, glancing back at the lantern flickering within the stable. Its glow is faint now, swallowed by the darkness creeping in from all sides. He watches as the flame bends low, then rights itself, trembling as though reluctant to remain lit in his absence. He feels the same reluctance, the same trembling within his chest, but he does not linger. He clicks his tongue softly, and the horse steps forward, hooves crunching against the frozen earth outside. The stable door swings shut behind him with a heavy thud, sealing away the warmth, the scent of hay, the breath of beasts that had steadied him. Now only the vast night stretches before him, its fog heavy, its silence deeper than stone. He grips the reins tightly, the pouch pressing against his hip, the weight of its secret growing heavier with each breath. The mission is no longer confined to shadows of candlelight or whispers within chapel walls. It rides with him now, carried into the open, into a world where watchful eyes may yet stir. He urges the horse onward, away from the castle's embrace, into the cold, unseen road that waits. Behind him, the lantern fades into memory. Ahead, the night gathers, ready to test the strength of silence, loyalty, and betrayal alike. The gate looms before him, massive and unyielding, its timbers dark with age, its iron bands streaked orange with rust. In the dim torchlight, it rises like the mouth of some ancient beast, jaws locked, waiting for the moment it must open and release him into the unknown. The fog coils low around its base, slithering across the frozen ground, curling over the cobblestones as if to bind his feet where he stands. 2 torches burn weakly at either side, their flames shivering in the wind. Their light is sickly, uncertain, struggling against the pull of the night. The night draws closer, his horse shifting uneasily beneath him, hooves striking hollow against the worn stones of the courtyard. The air is raw, heavy with damp and the faint, sour stench of rotting wood. He can taste it on his tongue, bitter as betrayal. The guards are there, 2 figures huddled near the gate, their cloaks wrapped tight, their helmets catching what little light the torches offer. One leans against the timber, head bowed, as if sleep has stolen him standing. The other paces slowly, stamping his feet against the cold, muttering under his breath. They do not look up as the night approaches, for they see only a familiar silhouette, a figure draped in cloak and steel, the emblem of service still faintly clinging to his bearing. His pulse thunders beneath his hood, yet his face remains still, unreadable in the flicker of firelight. He rides with the measured calm of one who belongs, each step of his horse deliberate, unhurried. He nods to the pacing guard as he passes, his voice low, steady. Cold night. The guard grunts in agreement, too weary to question, too dulled by routine to see the storm carried within the night's pouch. As he draws level with the gate, his hand drifts to the wood, brushing against its rough grain. It bites into his skin with splinters, sharp reminders that even the strongest walls crumble slowly, silently. His fingers linger there, pressed to the cold timber as though touching the threshold of his own soul. The horse stamps, snorts, a puff of white breath rising from its nostrils into the damp air. The guards shift, one tugging at the heavy iron ring. The hinges moan, long and low, their cry echoing through the courtyard like the groan of some ancient wounded thing. Slowly, the gate begins to part, its bulk trembling against its own weight, until a narrow path yawns open into the dark beyond. The night feels the night's breath rush in, cold, sharp, merciless. It smells of earth and ash, of smoke from the village chimneys below, of freedom laced with danger. For a moment, he pauses. He turns his head, looking back at the castle walls. Their silhouette is black against the cloudy sky, towers rising like jagged teeth. Within those walls lie vows sworn, battles fought, prayers whispered into stone. Within those walls lie the echoes of laughter in feasting halls, the clang of swords, the toll of bells. It has been his prison and his sanctuary both, and now it recedes from him, already shifting into memory. The torches by the gate sputter in the wind, flames bowing low, shadows writhing across the stone. He lowers his head, pulling his hood deeper over his face. The pouch at his hip feels heavier, dragging at him like a chain. Yet he does not falter. He urges his horse forward, hooves clopping softly over the damp earth into the gap carved between wood and night. The gate closes behind him with a groan and a final thud, its sound reverberating through the ground, up into his chest. It is the sound of separation, of severed ties. It echoes like a coffin lid sealing, final, irreversible. He does not look back again. Beyond the walls, the world stretches vast and silent. The village below lies cloaked in fog, its thatched roofs hunched like weary shoulders, smoke from dying hearths curling faintly into the night sky. Dogs bark faintly, then fall quiet, their voices swallowed by the mist. The fields beyond glisten faintly with frost, their furrows silver beneath the moonlight hidden behind clouds. He rides down the path slowly, each step sinking into the soft earth. The sound of his horse's hooves is muffled, dull, as though the land itself seeks to erase his passage. His breath fogs before him, vanishing into the air, fragile as prayer. Every sense sharpens, the rustle of wind through dead branches, the creak of leather at his side, the distant cry of an owl. He is no longer a knight within walls, bound by stone and vow. He is a shadow moving through open dark, a bearer of secrets too dangerous to name. He thinks of the faces of the guards, unknowing, weary men whose lives will go on within those walls, never sensing what passed so near to them. He envies their ignorance, their simplicity. They are safe in their silence. His silence, however, is exile, heavy, condemning. He presses forward, deeper into the night. The castle fades behind him, its torches dimming, swallowed by fog. Ahead lies the road, long and uncertain, winding toward fate he cannot yet see. The gate has closed. The threshold is crossed. And with each breath, he feels the weight of the night binding tighter around him, pulling him deeper into the mission from which there can be no return. The road narrows as it bends away from the castle, swallowed by mist that clings low across the fields. Frost crunches faintly beneath the horse's hooves, each step muffled as though the earth itself seeks to keep his passage secret. The fog is thick, wrapping the land in a pale shroud, and beyond it the outline of trees begins to rise. Tall, skeletal, their bare branches clawing into the night sky. The knight lowers his head, pulling his cloak tighter, as if the fabric alone could shield him from what lies ahead. The forest waits like a mouth, its dark canopy swallowing what little light drifts through the clouded heavens. As he enters, the sounds of the world shift. The distant barking of dogs, the faint toll of bells from the chapel tower, all fade. In their place comes the rustle of branches, the crack of twigs beneath unseen paws, the low groan of boughs heavy with age. The air is colder here, damp, filled with the scent of pine and decay. It bites the throat, clinging to every breath. The horse moves carefully, hooves sinking into soft earth blanketed with dead leaves slick from evening frost. Its ears twitch, head jerking at each sudden snap, each cry of an owl hidden in the canopy. The knight lays a hand against its neck, murmuring low, though even his whisper sounds intrusive beneath the ancient silence. He feels the animal's tension in his palm, muscles taut, ready to bolt at the slightest provocation. He glances left, then right. The mist thickens, bending between trunks, veiling the path ahead. Each tree rises like a pillar, its bark scarred, its roots twisted, reaching across the road as though to trip him. He knows these woods, yet tonight they feel strange, unrecognizable, alive in their watchfulness. He senses eyes in the dark, though none are seen. The forest itself seems to breathe, each gust of wind a whisper he cannot quite decipher. The pouch at his side shifts with his motion, heavy against his hip. He presses his hand against it, feeling the crackle of parchment through leather, the hardness of the wax seal. Never has a burden so small weighed so heavily. He thinks of the words written in his hand, words that could fracture oaths older than stone. He feels the forest pressing closer, as though it too judges him, as though its branches lean in to strip him bare. A twig snaps. The horse freezes, ears pricked, nostrils flaring. The knight's hand flies to his sword, fingers curling around the hilt, the cold steel biting into his palm. He wheels in the saddle, eyes straining into the mist. Nothing. Only darkness, shifting shadows, fog weaving into shapes that dissolve as quickly as they form. His breath quickens, fogging the air, and for a moment he wonders if the forest itself is alive, mocking him with its silence. He releases the hilt slowly, though his hand does not drift far. He urges the horse forward, each step more hesitant than the last. The mist thickens, swallowing the road until it seems he rides upon nothing, floating between earth and air. The trees close in, their branches bending low, some snapping like brittle bones as he passes. He feels them scrape against his cloak, hears them scratch against his armor, as if they seek to tether him, to hold him within their grasp. The wind shifts. From the depths of the forest comes the faint sound of water rushing, the murmur of a stream swollen by autumn rains. It is the only sound that comforts him, for it is real, tangible, a reminder that he still moves through the living world. Yet even this sound carries unease, for it promises a crossing ahead, a place where footing falters, where shadows grow deeper. He lifts his eyes to the canopy. The moon struggles behind thick cloud, its pale light breaking through in brief fragments, silvering the mist. In those flashes he sees ravens perched upon branches, their feathers black against the pale glow, eyes glinting like coals. They shift and stir as he passes, their wings beating faintly, the sound like the rustling of parchment. He shivers, pulling his cloak closer, as if their gaze can pierce through fabric to the secret pressed against his side. The horse snorts, stamping against the earth, reluctant to go further. He leans forward, stroking its mane, whispering low, "Steady now." His voice cracks slightly, more plea than command. The animal responds, though uneasily, pressing forward once more. The forest thickens, the path narrowing to little more than a track carved through undergrowth. His sword brushes against branches, the sound of steel against wood harsh in the quiet. He feels the forest watching, waiting for him to falter. His every breath is loud, his every heartbeat thunderous in his ears. He remembers the stone walls, the chapel candle, the stable's breath, places now distant swallowed behind him. Here, there are no saints, no monks, no guards, only the veil of trees, the silence of earth, the shadows of ravens. A branch cracks behind him. He wheels again, sword half drawn, eyes searching the mist. Nothing, only darkness, endless and patient. He sheathes the blade slowly, though his knuckles stay white around the hilt. His chest rises and falls, breath heavy, mingling with the fog until he can no longer tell where he ends and the night begins. He presses on. The mist thickens until even the prints of his passage vanish, swallowed instantly by the damp earth. The road ahead fades into white-gray haze, its end invisible, its promise uncertain. The horse trudges forward, step after step, and the knight follows, bound to his mission. Bound to the secret that burns like fire against his hip. Above, the moon hides its face once more behind cloud. The forest veils itself in deeper shadow. He rides on, unseen, unheard, swallowed into the night's breath. The forest parts at last, its dark canopy breaking open to reveal a clearing where the mist hangs heavy above a rushing sound. The knight draws his horse to a halt. Before him lies the river, black and swollen with autumn rains, its surface broken by the swirl of eddies and the gleam of moonlight forcing its way through the clouds. The water moves swiftly, gurgling, roaring in places where jagged stones break its flow. It is no gentle stream. It is a living thing, restless, hungry, unyielding. He dismounts slowly, boots sinking into the mud of the bank. The soil clings to him, sucking at his heels, as though it too conspires to drag him back. The horse shifts, nostrils flaring, breath steaming in the cold air, hooves pawing at the ground. It does not wish to go forward. Its ears twitch at the rush of water, eyes wide with unease. He lays a hand on its neck, feeling the shudder of muscle beneath the damp coat. "Steady," he whispers, though the word is as much for himself as for the animal. The air here is sharper, filled with the metallic tang of the river, the scent of wet stone and rotting leaves carried from upstream. The knight kneels by the water's edge, dipping his hand into the current. It is icy, numbing, biting so deep that the chill seizes his bones. He pulls it free, drops falling like shards onto the mud. He presses the wet palm against his face, as though testing whether he can endure the river's touch. At his hip, the pouch presses against him, the sealed parchment within as heavy as any stone. He unfastens it for a moment, holding it close to his chest. The wax seal gleams faintly in the dim light, hard, unbroken, binding secrets that could fracture kingdoms. He looks at the current, black and merciless, and imagines letting it fall, watching the river seize it, tear it apart, carry it into oblivion where no man could ever read its words. His hand trembles at the thought. For a heartbeat, the temptation is almost sweet, like the promise of release. But the mission is bound to him tighter than chains. He cannot let it go. To do so would mean abandoning not only his lord, but his own name, his oath, his place in the world. He clutches the pouch tighter, the leather dampening with the cold of his fingers, and forces himself to rise. The horse stamps nervously, snorting, refusing to step closer to the water. He cannot blame it. This crossing is not meant for beast or man. He pulls the reins to a low branch, tying them with stiff fingers. The horse tosses its head, restless, pulling against the rope, but he leaves it, whispering a final word that catches in his throat. He turns back to the river alone. The current roars louder as he steps forward, boots sinking deep into the mud, then into the water itself. The shock is instant, searing, as if the river seeks to flay him alive. It climbs quickly up his legs, each step dragging him deeper, the water pulling with invisible hands. He grits his teeth, each breath sharp, every muscle tensed against the current's force. His cloak grows heavy, sodden, clinging to his body, threatening to drag him under. The river howls around him, battering his knees, his waist, then climbing toward his chest. The pouch presses against him, soaked now, the parchment inside fragile as bone. He clutches it in one hand, pressing it tight against his body while his other arm flails for balance. Each step is a battle, his boots sinking into unseen stones, the mud sucking at his feet like the grasp of the dead. He stumbles once, the current seizing him, nearly tearing him from his footing. Water rushes over his shoulder, icy, choking, filling his ears with its roar. He gasps, lifting his head to the sky, teeth bared against the cold. He lunges forward, forcing his body against the torrent, each step carrying him closer to the far bank. At last, his boots strike solid ground. He collapses onto the opposite shore, knees slamming into mud, hands clawing at the wet earth. He breathes heavily, chest heaving, water dripping from his hair, his cloak plastered to his frame. The pouch is still clutched to his chest, soaked but intact. He presses it tighter, almost in disbelief that it remains with him, unclaimed by the current. For a moment, he lies there, staring upward at the cloudy heavens. The moon flickers faintly through the shifting veil, a pale witness to his struggle. His breath spills into the night in white plumes, each exhalation ragged, desperate, alive. Around him, the forest edges close once more, trees looming, their branches bending over him like silent spectators. The river continues to roar behind him, indifferent, carrying on its endless course as though nothing had happened. Its voice is relentless, mocking, eternal. He rises slowly, mud smearing across his armor, his boots heavy with water. His body trembles with cold, but his hand remains steady upon the pouch. He looks once more at the current, black and surging, and knows he has crossed more than water. The castle is behind him, its gates closed, its chapel silent. The forest has tested him. The river has nearly claimed him. Ahead lies only darkness and the long road into secrecy. He turns his back on the river, stepping forward into the waiting fog. The horse's absence weighs on him, yet he feels lighter in a strange, terrible way. The river has taken part of him, drowned it beneath its waters, left it behind in the current. What walks forward now is not the same man who left the castle walls. He has crossed a boundary not only of stone, but of soul. He presses into the mist, his boots sinking into the earth, each step carrying him deeper into exile. The river roars behind him still, its voice fading slowly into distance, into memory. Ahead, the night spreads vast and merciless, the weight of its silence broken only by the sound of his own breath. The candlelit chamber, the torchlit corridor, the hidden chapel, the stable's breath, the silent gate, all fade now, consumed by the river's relentless song. His mission, his burden, his secret, lives on only in the ink sealed within the pouch pressed against his heart. He disappears into the veil of fog, the night closing around him, leaving the river to roar alone, endless and unchanging.